This video is not for beginners. If you are a beginner, it might help you, but it could be very confusing. This video is about showing how I set up my OBS and my Streamerbot to use different themes so I can simply copy and paste that and just swap a few different assets. If you have any questions, please feel free to write a comment down below or check out the description. You can join my Twitch anytime, ask any questions. I'll happily show you what I have. Let's first jump into OBS. Inside of OBS, you might already know this, but I didn't fully understand how to use it properly. As you probably know, you have a selection of scenes on the left for different sorts of scenes you want to show, and then within a scene, you can have different sources. What I figured out is that I can use my scene collection to use different themes, so I can just swap between different themes for different games or different types of streams I'm wanting to show. For my scene collection, right now, I have an Aliens theme going on because I'm playing Aliens Isolation. Some of the things I use for this stream is a little intro video to show when people hop in. Then I have a starting soon scene, which shows chat and a little countdown for when I'm going to start stream. And I have it set up so that when messages get typed, a little sound effect happens. I have a just chatting and then a game scene, all this themed for my Aliens Isolation gameplay. And I do that by setting the scene collection, which saves all of my scenes. And if I ever wanted to change, I can swap it out and it replaces everything right here. And then I have a different camera right here, but you can see the leaderboard, which I use for people to type messages to get ahead. All of this showing a completely different collection for a different theme I'm wanting to show. So how can we set different scene collections and automate that within Streamerbot? If we go over to Streamerbot, I have a custom themes subgroup. In here, you can see the most important one is setting the theme. Streamerbot has an action for getting the raw OBS data. Now, like anything, you always want to make sure you check the documentation or head over to Streamerbot's Discord. They have a support channel, and in that they're using the forum form. Whenever you're typing a post, it will search previously written posts, and this has helped me a lot to save the developers time from reading my posts and helping me out and just seeing what other people have posted. More likely than not, the problem or the thing that you're looking for has already been asked, and you can save a lot of time for the developers just by looking at what was already posted. I wanted to see if Streamerbot can pull the OBS settings for what scene I currently have selected, and there is. You can get the scene collection list, which shows you everything. If we go back into Streamerbot and we go to OBS Studio and Raw, in here we can put in JSON. Now, you don't need to be a coder because in their documentation, they already show you what you need to provide. Just go ahead and copy it, head back into Streamerbot, and paste your code here. Now, there's some pretty great things. You can format to make it look like JSON, and then you can even test it to see what the returned results are. When you return those results, you can see what all the variable names are as well as the values. We can see I have a list of scene collections as well as the current scene that's being used. So if we head back into Streamerbot and we now have pulled this data, we can now use those variables. So the variable I'm using is OBS raw current scene collection name. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, is my current scene the default scene? Is my current theme the aliens theme? If so, I'm gonna set a global variable. And then I also just set a Twitch message for myself to see if I mess something up. You're gonna wanna make sure you break out of this so that Twitch message doesn't hit. But now that we've done this, we've set the theme for Streamerbot so that we can use that for all future actions. So remember when I typed a message, I got a sound effect. In my custom themes group, I have a chat message effect. In here, I'm grabbing the global theme variable. The first thing I do is I make sure to see if that default value is selected, unknown. Maybe I messed something up. But after that, I'm going to see, hey, is this my aliens theme? And then I can play the sound effect that I want. That's already pretty cool, but how can I set themes for different things like my alerts? In Streamerbot, I've set up custom alerts for when someone follows, raids, or tips me. So if someone raids me, we can see
7.
So we can see a video pop up that shows a very specific video that plays audio. And if I change my scene collection to default and I completely swap, and we're gonna go here. Okay, now I've completely swapped over. What happens if I raid using this scene collection?
This installation has a substantial dollar value attached to it.
So now we can see a different video and a different audio played. Now there's one major caveat you have to know. If we head back into Streamerbot and we go to our set themes action, this is where I'm setting the theme so that that raid sound effect for my aliens theme is played when I'm on my aliens theme scene collection versus when I'm on my default scene collection. But when does this set theme run? Right now I have an automations group. Inside of that group, I have a stream starting action. In here is where I set the theme for my stream when I'm starting. So when you're performing tests, you gotta make sure that in your set theme action, you gotta make sure that you run this for your testing. Otherwise, it's not gonna work when you just natively change the scene collection. Streamerbot's not gonna know you made the change to run this action. That's why I have this test to run, so I can just test the trigger to execute this to manually change the theme. But by default, when I'm starting my stream, I'm setting the theme so that everything is done automatically. So now that you know how I change my scenes in OBS, and now that you know in Streamerbot, I have custom themes to check what scene I'm using, how can I make this work so that I can use one alert in OBS without having all these custom settings? If we take a look at my show alerts action, I run a couple of different checks. One, I check to see if it's a raid or if it's a tip or a follow to show the video and play a certain sound. And then I'm setting the text for that. As you probably know, you need to specify the source that you're going to use when you're changing a video out. So here's how I make that work. If I take a look at the tip check to see if someone is tipping me, how I have mine set up is I'm going to check a very specific source that is only ever going to be used for tips. And just to show you one more, in raid, I do a very similar thing. I just check the source that is only my raid source. So how does this work in OBS? Down below, I have a selection of scenes that are just for alerts. For one scene, I show the collection of all my other parts of the alert, whether that's the text in the alert, the user profile picture, or the video. Then I have a scene that's just for the text, one for the username and one for the actual text of the alert. And then finally, I have different videos based off of the alert that I'm going to show. This video is always going to be my tip video. This video will always be my raid, and this will always be my follow. If I change scenes and I go to my default scene, and if I were to look at the alerts with videos, it's the same setup, just different videos. What this allows me to do is to have a Streamerbot setup that knows the source in OBS that's not going to change, except the contents of what's inside of that, which is based off of what my scene collection is doing. I thought this was a really cool setup to have a scene collection to change different themes in OBS while maintaining a setup in Streamerbot so you don't need to constantly change the source. Previously, what I would do is I would create a source and I would name it what that thing is. So if I was doing a tip, I would probably call it tip Mr. Krabs Money. And then for that tip, I would just have that play. But having your OBS setup be the same across all your themes will allow Streamerbot to make it easier and a little bit more modular so that you can have multiple different themes for your streams while also maintaining a pretty simple Streamerbot setup. I thought this was really cool. I hope this helps someone else out to show that you can have different themes for your streams while also maintaining your Streamerbot setup so it doesn't get overly complicated, so you can reuse actions instead of creating a new action for every different theme that you have. Okay, the rest of this video is just gonna be me showing off my setup just because I thought it was really cool. So if you take a look down, I have a badge. This badge is gonna show up on my stream. So for example, what I set this up is when someone wants to lurk or anything else, a little pop-up comes up and it makes a sound effect. And right now I have the alien's egg sound effect. But if I were to change themes, don't forget, if you change your theme in OBS and you're wanting to test this out, make sure you run your set themes action so that Streamerbot knows that you changed the theme. Now that I run that trigger, I can type in lurk one more time. And a little pop-up comes up and it makes a different sound. I should be looking over here. That was my badge effect, and you already heard my message sound effect. So whenever a message comes in, it sounds like the same sort of computer noises whenever messages are typed on the machine. Okay, you'll probably notice that this message just got changed. That's because in Streamerbot, I have another action to reset all my variables and scenes, and I set up a really fun chat leaderboard to see whoever has the most messages and keep that tracked per stream. So as I'm typing, I'm creating a counter in the background for each user, and I created a command so that people can check where they are on the leaderboard. And when they run that command, it tells them how many messages they've written total. Obviously, you're seeing I wrote 2 because I have Twitch and Kick enabled for the Streamerbot chat overlay. But when I've reached 10 messages, a sound effect goes off and it shows the new tracker for the person who's in the lead. That is the leader user change sound effect that I have. Then obviously you saw the raid and the tip sound effects that I have playing. And then I show a little intro video to set the mood for my stream, which is what this action does. I almost forgot. How do I have my chat looking like this? If we go over to my chat scene, this is where I'm using the Streamerbot chat overlay. Now, I'm assuming you know what the Streamerbot chat overlay is and how to set it up, but I'm gonna be really quick. If you go to the server clients and you go to WebSocket server, you need to make sure that this is turned on. Then inside of OBS under docs, you should be able to see Streamerbot chat. Once you have that open, make sure you go to settings, hover over the settings general and go to overlay. Inside of this overlay, you have a bunch of settings that you can set. Make sure that you have this bottom set up properly. If you created a password inside of Streamerbot, make sure you put that password in there. Then after that, if you made any changes in here, you're gonna see this save and copy overlay highlighted. Make sure you copy on that. And just like anything else, make sure you create a browser and make sure you paste the URL that you copied inside of the URL parameter here. Here is how I got all of the colors. Honestly, I ChatGPT'd this. I just said, hey, I would like to have an aliens terminal chat theme. Can you please set the colors so that they glow? They have that green color with a slight dark background. And it created this overlay, and it made sure to have the name and the message actually highlighted, like with this glow color. I really liked it. I think it's really cool. That's everything. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped you out. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to help. All right, thanks. Bye.